All right, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Tucker Johnson, and I am joined today by my co-host in this webinar, Vera Richards. And just to, I'd like to start off really quickly by talking a little bit about our history together, me and Vera. Because we go a ways back together. And I mentioned, I think if you're joining us from LinkedIn today, I think I mentioned in my comment that Vera's a longtime friend and mentor. But what exactly does that mean? It means Vera was one of my very first bosses in localization, meaning when I moved to Seattle, I originally came over here from Spokane, Washington, and I started in a big company here in Seattle. And I was hired by Vera Richards at Moravia, and she taught me a lot about not just project management, but how to engage better with customers. And because of that, it is something that I've carried with me throughout the rest of my career, and it really touches on everything that I do. And nowadays, I teach courses on account management for project managers, and I've written extensively about it. So Vera Richards is really the source of that inspiration. And I'd like to turn it over to her just a little bit so she can rebut everything that I've just said. And Vera, tell us a little bit about yourself while I get this streaming figured out.
So thank you for this just glowing intro. Thank you so much, Tucker. And also hello to everybody online. So happy to have you joining us on this webinar today. Tucker, I was not really your mentor. I think you and I kind of see eye to eye on this customer-centric approach and on how to manage accounts and what is important for our clients. So it wasn't anything I mentored you on. I think it's very natural to you, and you far exceeded to where I was, at the time when you and I met. So I always thought that we had a very similar style of management, and very much appreciated being your colleague. So not really mentor, but I really appreciate that glowing intro you had of me.
Oh, shucks. Well, thank you very much, Vera. And now I finally got my video. If you're joining us online from YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're joining us from, so you can finally see me now. But I apologize. I've got the webinar people. You guys can see me here, and I am over here for if you're joining us online. Well, now that we get into it, the topic of today's talk is non-traditional revenue growth through customer-centric project management. And that is quite the mouthful. Essentially, what I think we want to talk about today, Vera, is going through this very customer-centric approach to project management. And this is something that both you and I remember back when we used to work together, we trade notes on it, and we're pretty much aligned. We pretty much see eye to eye on this. So I don't think there's going to be that many surprises for me in this conversation, but I'm very interested in in having this conversation because I think it can be a big benefit for others out there in the industry. And I wanted to start off, I have some questions if you don't mind. I want to start off just by talking a little bit about what are some of the basic models out there for account management, project management, essentially for dealing with customers. I know there's several different philosophies out there. Which one do you subscribe to?
Yes, so I know that was one of the questions you shared with me, that we're going to talk about the different roles within the company and how to grow the business and how the sales are set up. I would say I take them all. So you mentioned account managers, business development managers, PMs project managers who are actually engaged with the client to grow the account. Then you have all the functional support from quality engineering and other areas of localization. I would say for growing an account, let's take them all, throw them all in, and the kitchen sink, I would say. So, and why I say that is because I am a true believer in aligning with our customers on every level to understand their business, to understand their needs, and who better than the people who are actually working on those projects for their clients to understand what their true need is and how they can come in and help them grow their end clients and their business and go to more markets. So here at Akorbi, we actually have account managers, but we also have program managers who manage the whole account together, not just the project, but also the business side of things,
Mm-hmm.
help the client plan, help the client make some business decisions. So that is to me, I see the team who is dedicated working with the client as the key to growing the account, and that's why this customer-centric approach to me resonates the best.
So, and by the team that's working with the client the closest, you mean the project management team?
Right, the project management team and the functional team. So it's just I think each LSP has a different methodology, how they are set up or how they run their business. Um, what I believe works very well is when we have the quality team who is dedicated to each client, the engineering which is dedicated to each client, the project management, um, or even program manager on top if the account is a certain size. So all of them working in synergy together. I've seen at some other with some other models that there is a account manager who is working with the client from the business perspective, setting up the contracts, putting in all the KPIs and SLAs, and doing the financial, side of things. And then that account is handed over to the production, and the account manager is called in when there's perhaps escalation or something good, or if there is a QBR coming up, and so on. Um, that can work to a certain extent, but to give the client that continuous partnership and consultancy, I have seen that work much better in how those accounts evolve. It's the gaining trust, the transparency, all of those things. But maybe that's getting too much into the weeds.
Well, it's just getting, we're production folks. We like to get into the weeds, right? And this is kind of what makes this an interesting subject for me, because what we're talking about, like I talk all the time about training project managers on basic account management skills, and you can call it account management skills, you can call it sales skills, you can call it whatever you like, right? But essentially, it's people skills, interpersonal relationship skills. Because throughout my career, I've noticed that that's one thing that it's high value. It's in high demand. I don't want to say it's lacking, right? Because I know a lot of excellent project managers out there who have excellent client relationship skills, but typically when Nimdzi Insights, we do a lot of sales and growth consulting, and typically when people come to us, they say they want to grow, and they'll say, I want to hire salespeople. Like, do you, right? And my partner Renato, he's a sales guy, right? So he's like, awesome, let me help you hire salespeople. And to which I always kind of back up and say, well, wait a second. Before we invest in going out and hiring a bunch of salespeople or hiring account managers, what have you done to train your project management team? And people ask me, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, your project managers, they're the people that are interfacing directly with the client day in, day out, correct? Like, well, yes. So I think it's very low-hanging fruit to provide some basic PM training before you go out and hire real quote unquote account managers. And you say all of them, and I'm interviewing you, but just to have a little back and forth here, when it comes to like which model works best, the account management model I've always been very skeptical of for our industry. And here's why. Because of all the reasons that I was just listing, the PM really has the relationship with the client, and an account manager comes in every, the stereotypical account manager is like, oh, I'll just come in every month and have coffee with the client, right? I know account managers do much more than that. But I've actually seen in my experience clients saying, who are you? Like, I don't want to talk to you. You're wasting my time. I want to talk to people that know what's going on with my account. And those are the project managers, right?
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. However, I do feel that the account management does have its place for certain accounts. You know, for the large customers with a lot of complexities and a lot of requirements to integration to solutions, yes, definitely the production has way more to offer and to even hook the client in
Mm.
than an account manager who is in more general. But then there are accounts where they are more transactional, they are not complex as far as the actual deliverables. And in those cases, account manager who knows localization very well can do a very good job as well to help offer some services, some general services, which are not maybe as complicated to explain or as complex. So it does have its place, but and you and I both know we've had experience, both of us, in growing accounts um, to much larger, expanse than what would be the
Not to brag or anything, right?
dragon. We really grew it. So, but we have both seen that. Yeah,
Right,
when
right.
you have a client who is quite localization savvy already, and they kind of know what they are looking for, they might not know exactly the solution they're looking for, but when they have someone who they trust, and I think that's the key here, because if you work with someone for some time, you establish a partnership, you establish that trust. So when they trust you, when they feel that you are very transparent with them, then they will open up all of their uh, different issue boxes, which they would not normally share with just anyone, and say, "Oh, how about this one? Maybe you can help me with this issue, this problem." So I think that's where it has its real value, in my opinion.
Right. And
So
the thing with trust takes time.
right. It takes time, and it takes also being able to admit a mistake to your client, admit errors transparently to the client, because that part is also key to gaining trust. If you keep saying everything is going well and great and perfectly fine, and you give them all these reassurances, and then an issue pops out, and then that trust is gone, gone, gone. So transparency in both good and bad, I guess.
Right. Yeah, and I talk about that a bit in one of the courses that I talk about, which is don't speak in absolutes, which is don't use words like never and always. Like, I will never deliver a file late, because then guess what? You know, you're going to deliver a file late eventually. Like next week, it might happen, right? So you can't guarantee that. And also because when you promise the moon, you lose credibility. And I think this is something that I see, especially with, like, I hate to say less mature, because it's kind of like judgy, but like, less experienced LSPs or account managers. Um, it's it's um, well, I had a point here. I'm sorry, but with the less experienced project managers, they're more apt to, not the project managers, the account managers. They're more apt to promise the moon, essentially,
Right.
right?
Right.
And hence, this gets into the classic, conflict, healthy conflict between ops and sales, right? Between project management and sales, because sales wants to go out and sell everything. Like, yes, we can do that, and we can do it really cheap. And then the project managers get it, and they say, oh, wait. you didn't check with me first, right? And that's another reason why I like to encourage project managers to learn more about sales, because it actually is very empowering, and it empowers them with information and knowledge that they need to have those conversations and talk to the sales team on in their own language and on their own terms, right? So, but hey, I was a project manager for years, and people kept telling me, "Hey, you should check out sales. You should try sales," and I never did it, and I still haven't, right? But nowadays, it's knowing what I do know about the account management process and sales process. I really wish, as a project manager, I had looked into it and gone that route sooner. Um,
Well, I disagree with you, Tucker. I think you've been in sales for a long time, even when you were a project manager, because then it sells on its own. If you do a good job and you are a good partner to the client, then the sales just come without you actually even having to go and take them to the golf course or buy them lunch, right?
I can't golf.
So
Yeah.
me neither.
Oh, well,
But and
and that's one thing Moravia did very well, because that's where we worked, and this isn't, we're not on the payroll for Moravia, so this isn't a plug for them, but they really, like, it was built into their culture of, like, customer first, customer intimacy was the
right,
terminology, right? Remember customer intimacy? They're like, oh yes, intimacy. That could have picked a better word, but it is the perfect word, because you want to be intimate, and to be intimate with the client, you need to understand them, right? And there's a process for that. But let's move on. We could be on this topic for a while, but we have the next question that we have here is, um, clients' needs, and we've already started. We've almost gone into this already several times, but clients' needs tend to change over time. You've alluded to this, and they change over time, and they change over as they mature, as they grow. Talk to me a little bit about that in your experience, and how do you manage that, like from an account management perspective? Because if you're set up to do one thing very well, and if the client changes that one thing that they need from you, how do you make sure that you're continuously adapting to that?
yeah, that's a good point. I think maybe being a little bit one step ahead of your client. So watching where the client is going and being able to recommend based on what you know, best practices, or even your experience from other accounts. If you have a profile of a client and you see, okay, this client is now going to different markets, or it's going to tackle different languages than they've tackled before with different types of challenges, then be one step ahead and say, before you do that, put in place X, Y, and Z. So if you are ahead of the client a little bit, that will help you guide them to the direction where you think that client should actually be going. But again, I think I want to stress, be completely honest. Don't try
Okay.
to sell the client something that you would benefit from, but it's not going to work for him, because that will come back and bite you. You need to really be in tune with that client. And it's, again, trust and partnership. It's at the top of my list when you want to be a good, I would say even salesperson, but I also shy away from that word. I'd rather be a partner
All right.
than a salesperson, because that alludes I'm trying to sell you whatever I can. That's not, in localization, that's not always the best strategy. The best strategy is to solve issues for a client, or not just issues, solve challenges for that client. So that's why I feel that maybe localization is one of those areas where sales is a little different word or a different meaning than in other industries. We are we I mean, bottom line, we do want people around the world to understand and to be able to buy goods with educated information in their own language, in their own culture. So that's our mission as people in localization. So that's why I think we should also sensitively treat the sales, because that just shows them that we are partnering. And I think you will see a lot of success with this approach. So
Well,
so I mean, just to answer your question, I'm sorry to to interrupt, but to answer your question, I see you're just gonna leave and let me go ahead.
no, no, no. I was just turning on a light.
Yeah, no, I'm
I
joking.
was
But
waiting for my turn. I'm not even listening to you, Vera. I'm just waiting for my turn to talk.
oh,
You know me.
I know. But to answer your question, um how do you adapt to the changing needs of the customer? If they go completely, if they decide suddenly to scale down big time, is the business going to handle that scale down? You know, what is it going to mean for our relationship? So let's say you build a lot of integrations. Let's say you invested a lot in that relationship with the client, and then suddenly the client's needs change, and they say, "Oh well, we're just no longer going to localize in all of these markets, and now we're just whittling this down to nothing, and you are now out all this money you spent on that relationship."
Mm,
So
mm.
that's a true situation, and we are seeing it now during COVID that some companies have to make those decisions. So how do you approach it? I have had a similar situation recently with exactly that, and I think again, going to your client and being completely honest, letting them know we have built up this team for you. We will have to let all of these linguistic experts go because you are no longer going to be localizing into those languages. And what does that mean for you and what does it mean for us? We just will have to let them know. No scope is coming from this client. They will have to go and find different clients. You are going to lose that team which has been trained and worked on all this. And then when you decide to pick up that work again, which you already said you would be in about 3 4 months, we are going to have a heck of a time getting these people back. So just being transparent, and it's up to the client to say, okay, let's keep maybe a certain portion of that work still coming, or maybe we will have to make that decision, and we at least know that these will be the challenges. So I think it's about that transparency, and for the business, we absolutely try to keep consulting them and giving them the best practices, and they will come back, and that investment is going to stay, getting some ROI. So I think it's again conversation, and some of these questions or some of these situations are individual, but all in all, I would again recommend honesty, transparency. That'll help you build that trust.
It sounds great, and I don't disagree. But you've got to have at least one story when that backfired. Or does it always work? Is honesty always the answer?
Uh, yes, definitely. Let me think of
Let
some
me
of
let
the.
me put it this way. I'll give you a chance here, just because I find transparency and honesty are good principles, right? Objectively, and I think you do need to be honest with the client, always. However, I think there's sometimes some things the client doesn't need to know, and that's not because. But I think you need to check your motives. Like if it's something that you're not telling the client, or something, and usually it would be a lie of omission, right? Like you're just not telling the client that something blew up, right? And I find that there's a time for it, because one thing that clients pay for us to do, the thing clients pay for us to do, is to make their lives easier, right? And if you're coming to them with every little problem, every little tiny little nitpicky thing, that's not making their lives easier. You're not helping them out, right? So in cases like that, let's say something's screwed up. Generally, there's can I fix it, right? And if so, then do I even need to tell the client about it, right? If I can't fix it, then I probably need to bring the client in, be fully transparent. Like you said, look, guys, here's the situation, and here are the options. Present, stay in the solution, be solution oriented. But if I can fix it and it's not going to impact the final deliverable, don't waste the time with it.
Yeah. And agreed. Definitely, you don't run to them, but every time you are coming across a bug in, in a product or something like that, which you can fix. Totally have to have use your discretion and not bother them. And yeah, definitely, we also I have to say that, sometimes I have vision in my mind, and I know we don't have this, right? But I know it's buildable and it will be workable solution. So that's also part of selling. You go to
Hmm.
the client and say, "Oh, we can solve it like this and that," and the client said, "This sounds great. Can I have it in a week?" And you don't even have the team, the tool, the the developer or anything like that. So being careful with setting the expectations, but yeah, if you truly believe and trust that this is something which you can build and put together, then by all means sell it. But caution there is not to promise something which you cannot deliver. So
Yeah. And,
yeah, certainly that's the other side of transparency. Sometimes you're selling a dream of yours, and then
yeah.
you have to deliver on it, but you have to believe in it.
Right.
So that,
Well, and those, very good points. And I liked, and I do want to move on and talk more about how project managers specifically contribute to this and dive into that concept a little bit deeper. But you mentioned the word, I don't know if you even used the word, but you were talking about being proactive, right? Essentially coming to the client before there is a big problem. And I think this is a nice segue into the next question that I wanted to go over with you, which is like, why are project managers uniquely suited to carry out an account management service, an account management function, client relationship? And that's because in my mind, and I mentioned earlier, I'm not a fan of the account manager model. Which, if you're hearing me say that, and you're about to write an angry comment, like, my opinion is more nuanced than that. So please don't, reach out to me and ask me more specifically why, because I'll take 3 hours of your time to explain why. But typically, I think of an account manager as someone who comes in and gets called when there's an escalation, right? And if you're managing by escalations, I think you're missing out because you're not taking the lead. You're not holding your client's hand and suggesting the next thing. You're just responding. You're coming in once a month and saying, "What do you want?" rather than coming in once a week and saying, "Here's what I think you should do." Right? And so in my mind, I kind of gave you the answer. That's why I think project managers specifically are uniquely suited to manage customer relationships. What are your thoughts on it?
yes, I understand it where you feel that it's another level really, which we are kind of inserting in the hierarchy of the company where the client calls the account manager, says I have a problem. Account manager goes to the project manager, says, oh, there's a problem. Project manager goes to the quality says, oh, well, we'll check what happened. We'll prepare RCA and so on. So yes, it could be that way, and I agree that if you have a very engaged project manager on a project, that project manager can jump in and start solving rather than have to jump through all of these different levels within the company. So yes, I feel the same that on those accounts which um, are very, I would say, busy. There's a lot coming and going. The project manager is in the best position to be able to bring in the solutions and bring in that insight. And I think part of it too, and maybe it's a little bit of a getting more in the weeds. What I feel is that the project managers I was a project manager too, and
Hmm.
I always found interest in the actual files which we were translating. And because I was also a translator at one point, it was really interesting for me when we got files for translation to open them up, to look inside, to see, oh, this could be a challenge and this could be a problem. And let's make sure we send extra instructions to the vendors. And I was really kind of in all of that the client was doing. Of course, you cannot do it with every file. You're getting thousands of files, but understanding the topic and kind of preventing even issues from becoming issues across all of your languages if you can. And then the same thing as a project manager, looking at those LQA results. I always tell the project managers, open up those LQA results
Yep,
and
I
look
remember.
what results, right? So I felt that that really made me as a project manager understand both sides, the vendors and also the clients, to see, okay, I am in the middle and I can bring the two sides together and I can help them deliver or help us deliver what the client is actually asking. And also, it helped me having that in-depth conversation with the client because the client knows only their product,
Hmm.
right? Challenges on the side of the languages, they are leaving that up to us, right? So if I understood what was in those files, what is the message they're trying to get to all of their markets, then I could sit down and say, oh, absolutely, in that software we were localizing, yes, with these languages, with right to left languages. Every time there is a word left, we have to translate it as right. Those type of minute little details, which I was able to understand because I understood the actual material. So that's what helps the project managers be closer to the client, in my opinion. And so it's all kind of connected. And we the best um, project managers I have seen have been that close to the client because they took that interest into what the client is trying to achieve, and that's what makes them good salespeople.
So that bears repeating. The best project managers that you've seen are the ones that are taking the time to really intimately get to know their clients and their workloads. The ones that open the files, right? The ones that look at the LQA reports. And it sounds kind of silly, like to me, because like I'm with you. I liked to open the files when I was a project manager. As we know, I come from a project management background as well. And one thing I say all the time is once a PM, always a PM. I don't care if you become the president of well, no one wants that job. President of Uganda sounds like a better job. You're still a project manager if that's what you came from. So I still very much feel like a project manager, and it baffles me that people don't want to look at the LQA reports because when I was working on a project, and to this day, it's like I want to know. And one struggle for me as I've moved on from project management and like advanced in my career is letting that go. Because when you get to a certain level, you don't have time to look at the LQA reports anymore, and it kind of breaks my heart, right? And I'm talking about the metaphorical LQA reports, right? I'm obviously not looking at LQA reports in my current role, but how do you personally like deal with that? Because I think you probably struggle with that as well.
Right. I don't think my answer is going to surprise you. I
You
still
don't.
sometimes,
You still look at the LQA reports.
yeah, because I find it's like a candy
I knew
shop
it.
for me.
I
I
knew it.
go in and pick one and just to see, oh, what kind of issues are we having, or what is the struggle. I'm not doing it to micromanage anything or anybody. That Tucker can tell you. I'm
Well,
not a
but that's a point because, like,
manager.
when normally when people think of a manager opening up reports and looking at them, they get the image of the evil micromanager. But it's not about micromanaging. It's
Yeah.
about taking ownership.
taking ownership, and I think for me it's true interest. I think I am a linguist
Yeah.
at heart. I am not a. I think that's what is my true love. Really, is the different challenges with different languages, and so that's why sometimes I go in and just find a LQA report to take a look at it, not just because
Just
I
to
want to,
just to scratch
just
that itch, just to get it out of your system. You're chasing the dragon, Vera.
oh,
You've got a problem.
I got a problem. I know. I will go to therapy for that one. But but yeah, I think you certainly cannot open every file, and you certainly cannot open every single LQA report for every single language. That is not what I am recommending for any PM, or they are going to hate me and pull their hair out and all that. But once in a while, it's good. And when you are getting new products from your client or new types of files, it's just kind of good to be aligned to see what's going on with that client. Why would his strategy be changing, perhaps? What's coming, and a lot of us work with clients who have very interesting products. So it's also a learning thing for us to see, oh, this new product is coming up. This is going to be really cool and interesting, and I can understand how it works and so on. So I think maybe I'm a little weird in that way, but I think that's what makes the job interesting. If we were just shuffling nameless files back and forth, it will become a routine. But if you actually try to learn about new things out there, it will bring a little more diversity to your job and more makes it more interesting. It's
Well,
never just
that's like me. I mean, you know me. I start to get the itch after 2 or 3 years, right, of doing the same thing, and that's one thing I like about this industry is there's always something new to learn, right?
right.
And I think that's I work with a lot of people here at Nimdzi that also possess that addiction to learning, and it's really fun because it's just like a collaborative. It's a geek dream, right? Because I've also in the past, I've worked with people which that's not their thing, and that's fine. More power to them. They've got other stuff, but they don't crave that learning, and I think that's something that has served me well in my career. And I kind of want to, before we get into the last question, um, ask you, because I think there might be some project managers out there who are watching this thinking, okay, Vera Richards is VP of localization for one of the biggest, most respected translation companies in the industry, and she started as a project manager. How did she do it? And like, what would you recommend to the next generation out there of project managers? Like, what areas should they develop? How should they train? Investing in training and development. What words of wisdom do you have for them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, my growth, again, I was a translator, I worked as a cultural immersion coach, I worked as a PM, actually engineer, also localization
Yeah.
engineer of some time, then PM, then I worked on the client side for a while as a developer and tester. So different I guess I was jumping from position to position. I was a group manager, then I was a program director, and now a VP of localization. So definitely went through the different. I tried on a lot of different hats, and it's not that I was ambitious going after different role or a title.
Hmm.
It was actually through the interest which I which interest into what our clients are into and also how this industry evolves. So I'm always trying to keep up with what's the next thing and is this thing going to be the game changer or not. So I was really looking at that, and with it came the progression in my career. So, and I can tell you that but by knowing the customers so intimately and understanding what they are trying to achieve, because let's face it, we work with some of the top clients and top of the industry, so they have a lot of development within their organizations, and so we can learn a lot from them, from their business strategy. So just being in tune to the client, it kind of helped me move through the ranks because I was able to manage a global teams because it came from a need, but we got it to try it on with our clients and it worked and it was a good concept. And I think also um, driving some enthusiasm within the teams, building the teams, gives me a pleasure to see that the team works well together, that they have what they need, that they can be transparent about what they are doing. So each project manager can do that within their team too. They can create that enthusiasm around their client. So if you have a project manager which also manages other project managers or coordinators, they can they can generate this excitement around what they do, and that's what gave me pleasure because I was very lucky to work with project managers who share that enthusiasm for what they were doing and what we were doing for that particular client. And they took pride that they were working for this particular client. That it all kind of happened somehow. Out of that grew the teams grew I was managing, and that was, I was lucky. But I do really have to say that it was the people I work with, and both people on the client side and people the internal teams, that you have to build that transparency and trust on both sides with the client and also with that entire team. So, I mean, it maybe sounds a little like a la la land. I'm listening to myself going,
I know. I listen to myself sometime. Well, first of all, I've had the pleasure of having my ankle chained to Renato Beninato for the last 3 years. And for those of you listening that know him, well, let's just say I'm becoming more and more like him, and it scares me. Because, and I hear that with you, you Vera, because I know I can vouch for Vera. For those of you listening, she is incredibly logical, down to earth, and practical. So if it sounds la la land, it is anything but. And what got me into thinking more about like the soft skills of project management and stuff. And I love, so essentially to sum up like what you said, what I heard you say about your like your career progression didn't come from ambition, like I want a promotion, I want this title, I want this. It was just a natural byproduct of, let's call it, intellectual and professional curiosity. You're just constantly out there wondering what the next best thing is, and not just, I mean, A, because it's interesting, but B, to see how this can add more value to your clients. And I think that was an important point to call out. And I also want to call out too, though, we've got about 15, I think it's scheduled for an hour. But if anybody is online, we have a bunch of folks joining us. There was a webinar set up, and if you're joining us from that, you can leave us questions in the Q&A. Please, I encourage you to do that while you've got Vera, direct access to Vera and to myself. If you're joining us online on social media, you can leave comments as well, and we can get back to those as well. And also, if this is the Rodrigo that I think it is joining us on the webinar, then happy birthday to Rodrigo. That's a shout out.
yeah,
Is that your Rodrigo, Vera? Are you making
I would think
are you
so.
making Rodrigo join?
Right, he's
Hi,
raising his
Rodrigo. He raises his hand. That was him. Awesome.
right.
Very
I
good.
do want to, one other thing too. Don't want to forget. So, Nimdzi and Tucker in particular were very kind to share with us the project management training, and our team participated in that training. And I do want to say that the training is extremely useful and practical. The entire team was just thrilled to participate. It's not short; it's quite in depth and detail, but everything which resonated back to me from the team members was that how much it focused on this connection with the client, this connection, the building, the trust building, and the sales part of that role, if you may. So I do want to say, if any of you online would have a chance to take that project management course, which Nimdzi has, it's super practical and helpful, and it has a lot of good tips everyone can use in their project management day to day. So just a shout out there.
Well, thank you for the shameless plug, Vera. The check is in the mail for that sponsored endorsement. But
yeah, I'm not flashing the course or anything. I'm just giving a true testimonial. So.
Well, thank you very much. But let me speak to that for just a second, because the last topic that I had on our agenda today was to talk about this transition to remote here, and we've made it this far. I congratulate us. We've only used the C word once, but as we all know, COVID came this year and pushed us all to remote. And one of the things that one thing I like about working at Nimdzi is it's like our job to talk to people, right? And to like have our ear to the ground and understand what's going on in the industry. And one of the things that we were hearing from manager and above level people that we were talking to was that they were struggling on how to continue providing support to their teams. And two types of support: the support just in this ongoing crisis that we're in, and continuing professional development. Because as a manager, I think and I feel it's a manager's job to provide coaching, mentorship, development to their team members. And it's not even just that I feel, this is like literally in the job description for most managers. And with the move to remote, we're somewhat at a disadvantage, because how do we support people that aren't there? So anyways, I say all that to say this, is that I had, and also like 2 weeks after COVID, I was supposed to teach a course at Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey, and I teach a course there on account management. And so I had to very quickly adapt it to an online format. And when it was done, I thought, well, maybe some of my clients might like this. And the feedback that we had got, and I sent it to you. Akorbi was the first company I sent it to, just because I was like, Vera, can you beta test this for me? And you're like, sure. And like, you signed up 40 people to take the test or to take the course. And the feedback was so good, like the response, I'm not saying like the course was so good, but it's like the demand, the craving out there in the industry for this type of development was so high that we decided to invest in this, and we're launching Nimdzi Learning this month, which is it's going to have more courses. And of course, we took your feedback. You said it's not short. Yeah, you're right. That was a very long course. Thank you to everybody that sat through that. But we're making the courses shorter and more digestible to provide training. So thank you for setting me up for my shameless plug for Nimdzi Learning. But if you're listening and you're interested in it, stay tuned. Sign up. I think there's a subscription list, because there's more information coming out. We've got interesting stuff on game localization, sales, project management, technology, lots of cool stuff on the roadmap. But with that, I'll stop talking. I don't want to talk about Nimdzi. I want to talk about account management and see what have you seen with this transition to remote. And I have a few points to make too. But what have been the challenges from a project management and an account management standpoint, really servicing your clients, or has nothing changed because we've already been remote?
Yeah, I think things did change for sure. We cannot say they haven't changed. What we're seeing is we're seeing more clients on camera. in their sweats and just someone you would not expect to be in their bedroom.
I promise I'm wearing pants, Vera. Not making that mistake again on the live stream.
So you're seeing more clients on the camera, as opposed to in the past when we were able to go and visit them in person. And then when we had meetings online, they would never get on the camera. And now I think they're all learning to be on the camera. So it's a new trend I've noticed. But the challenge is with the team, with the project management team, and just kind of keeping people engaged, is that we all have project managers in different locations, and they're working remotely anyway. So we kind of practice for this for all of our lives.
This is what we train for. This is our big day, our time to shine.
Right, but the difference is that before they were working remote and they could get together for some, just kind of social time, and they could meet up at those different co-working places and so on, and that is now unfortunately not happening. So we have to get together for happy hours online, and we have to make a conscious effort to try to keep that momentum going, although it's much different. With the clients, I think some of them probably did a great big sigh and say, "Oh, great, we don't have to organize these big QBRs and everybody's flying in and driving in and so on." But it is important for you to be on that camera with your clients because it is completely different when you're looking them in the eye, even though it's on the screen, than if you're hiding behind a blank screen. So I think that's the difference. And also the impact of COVID on the budget for different clients. That's real. It's real for the LSPs as well. It's real for the business globally. So that's another thing. But again, trying to be sensitive that those clients have other issues which are impacting them from the COVID perspective. We might not have because we are used to working remotely. We are used to this type of
I
situation.
I remember when it first came out, we were just the phone was ringing off the hook here at Nimdzi because everyone wanted to know like how is this affecting the industry, right? Particularly like LSP owners calling us, right? And it's like, well, depends. How much work are you doing with cruise lines, right? Like, how much work are you doing with travel and hospitality? How much work are you doing? And some companies, some groups, some books of business are coming out of this just fine and growing. Some are not. Some are going out. So to your point, like how virtual has affected us is dependent, I think, on a lot of different cases. But one of the things, like the thing that I am preaching from the rooftops about this is the great leveler. This is the great balancer, right? The playing field is now balanced, meaning your little LSP, and this applies to other companies, not just LSPs, right? But your little organization is your Zoom webinar, your Zoom conference looks exactly the same as the big guys. The big guys who used to have thousands of dollars to send 20 salespeople to 20 conferences to schmooze 200 clients, and you couldn't do that. You didn't have a seat to the table because you couldn't pay you couldn't buy in to the poker game, so to speak. And now it's a leveling playing field, and I think we wasted that as an industry for the first few months. I think a lot of companies wasted it, and no judgment. I probably would have done the same because they were waiting to see. And I think now people are starting to realize, oh, there's opportunity here. And if we don't invest now, then we're going to miss out. And we're starting to see a lot more investment in whether that's investment like purchasing a different, merging with another company, acquiring a company, or whether that's investment of I'm going to hire another salesperson. Investment looks in different for different companies. With that, though, I want to be conscious of the time here, and if there's any questions. Joshua said they now send stuff way past 5 p.m. We must have been. I forgot what we were talking about with 5 p.m. But yeah, no, they'll send stuff anytime. It doesn't matter. They'll tell you they'll send it before 5.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with what you said with leveling the playing field. That's very, very true. And yeah, it is all in the diversity of your clients, how much you've been impacted by COVID. Totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, to wrap it up here, we don't have any questions, but Vera and I are both very accessible, so please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. Our contact information will be linked in the descriptions of the videos, and also we'll make sure to render this as a video and post it so that it can be shared with people out of there. I want to extend, and please everybody help me extend a heartfelt thank you to Vera for joining us today on a Friday. I can't think of any better way to spend my Friday. If I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be calling you anyway to see if you want to meet up for lunch. So this has been very nice. Any closing words or closing statements or shameless plugs you would like to make before we wrap up here?
Yeah, no, I want to thank everyone who attended. Thank you so much for spending the hour with us. And again, pleasure to talk to you, Tucker. You know I admire everything you do, and Nimdzi is a great company to work with. Also, Akorbi is a great company to work with, so that's my shameless
There's your shameless plug.
I am happy to have this time to be able to talk about what really something I love, the topic I really love, and happy there to answer any questions if anyone's interested.
Well, there you have it. If you're an organization looking for an LSP that is very customer-centric, I can vouch for you that Vera's entire team has taken a 16-hour account management for project management course taught by a very handsome and charismatic instructor who shall remain nameless. So if you're looking for a project management team with good customer service skills, give Vera a call. If you're looking for training for your project management team on customer service calls, give me a call. And once again, thank you very much. This has been non-traditional revenue growth through customer-centric project management with Vera Richards. My name is Tucker Johnson from Nimdzi Insights, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.